The next 48 hours will determine the future of the US, and this is my most important video I've made on this channel because we are seeing some things that are unprecedented. So some major things are going to potentially unfold in the next 48 hours, and I want to bring you the alpha right now on exactly what Trump is saying, what is getting tweeted, what is the evidence we're seeing, what's going to be the reaction of the gold market, the silver market, the US stock market. Has there been manipulation happening already with some of this information coming out? We'll talk about that. And then we're also going to be talking about, what Iran's point of view is on the whole matter. And then also, how can you actually best prepare if this whole situation does unfold and it goes bad? Like, what do people actually, should consider in this environment? We're going to talk about all of that in today's very, very important video. So again, the most important video we've had on the channel, because again, this might go to its final stage. We're going to break it down right now. So if you enjoy the video, guys, just give me a signal, like the video. It's a signal you guys are watching and you do enjoy and you do get value out of these. And I do try and bring you the most important critical information so you yourself can decide exactly what you want to believe. So, we're not in the propaganda game like some of the other outlets out there. We just want to give you guys the facts, the truth, so you guys can make the decision. And I'll tell you what I think about the whole matter as well. Now, having said that, let's get into it. Obviously, there was a massive, catastrophic day on the stock market yesterday. And I want to just point out that there could be manipulation here. I'm not saying that there is, but I'm just saying there does look like there is a lot of erratic tweets coming out of Trump that are actually contradicting himself. So he actually contradicts himself quite often. And the thing is, people are making money off this. So remember, there is so much manipulation happening in the financial markets. We saw gold drop below 4,500 just recently. We saw silver go below $70. So at the moment, it's trading at 67. And we also saw some time-sensitive announcements out of Trump once the financial markets closed. And I'll reveal exactly what they are. But I have to say, guys, big manipulation. Don't be surprised if people, in the inside are making money out of this. And I don't think it's right people are doing that, and there is manipulation in the market. But let's reveal some of this. So if you have a look at this graph, this was the last, 24 hours yesterday. Today is Saturday. And you can see right here, 2:30 p.m., CBS reports Trump considering boots on the ground. So you can see right here, little bit of a decline in the S&P 500. Then you can see right here, Trump comes out, he makes a statement. He says, I don't want a ceasefire with Iran. That's a period of mass FUD and panic as the S&P 500 on the day drops to a new low right there. And then right here, 5:13 p.m., Trump says US is considering winding down Iran war. You see a huge pump right here. And then also after the markets closed yesterday, this announcement got put out by Trump, and it's our idea on this channel. I'm going to tell you later on what I think of this, but this is what he says. So this is Trump's words right here. He says, we are getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East with respect to the terrorist regime of Iran. Number one, completely degrading Iranian missile capability, launches, and everything else pertaining to them. Number two, destroying Iran's defense industrial base. Number three, eliminating their Navy and Air Force, including anti-aircraft weaponry. Number four, never allowing Iran to get even close to a nuclear capability, and always being in a position where the USA can quickly and powerfully react to such a situation should it take place. Number five, protecting at the highest level our Middle Eastern and allies, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and others. The Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The US does not. Fast, we will help the countries in their Hormuz efforts, but it shouldn't be necessary once Iran's threat is eradicated. Importantly, it will be an easy military operation for them. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Now, this tweet is just full of disconnections from reality. I have to just be honest with you because we have evidence. I'll show you the evidence. A lot of this doesn't match up to reality at all. And the other thing is, this could be, again, further manipulation, further deception in this war, right? Because one thing we have seen in the past is Trump has put out tweets saying nothing's going to happen. He's negotiating, peace is likely, etc., etc. And then he'll come in with a massive attack. Could that be happening again It is a possibility. So, one thing we have to understand right here, and I'll show you this evidence, the Iran missiles, they're still firing. Just recently, in the last 24 hours, they actually sent missiles towards this Diego base in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 2,300 miles away. Now, it didn't actually hit anything on the island, but it's showing you that, this tweet about, neutralizing Iran's threat, it's just not even, it's non-existent at the moment. So Iran still has a massive amount of missiles. They've got underground missiles. The capability is still there very much. And also, look, we saw yesterday as well, an F-35 jet was shot down. You can actually see this tweet from the official foreign minister of Iran. He actually says down the bottom here, US government says one thing, reality says another. Right as US authorities claim Iran's defense are gone, an F-35 gets hit. As they declare Iran's navy finished, USS Gerald Ford turns back and USS Abraham Lincoln drifts farther away. Different decade, same, we're winning. Now, there's a lot of truth to that because that's actually what's been happening. So there has been a lot of tweets out of Trump saying basically, everything's finished. The anti-aircraft system is gone. The Navy is gone. There's no leaders left. But for some reason, you just have a very effective military still in Iran working and still firing off lots of missiles. So this is something to have on the radar because at the moment, we have about 48 hours before the US stocks, the futures will open. Now, whether the market believes Trump right here about winding this down, you could see a potential pump back up in the market if the market is gullible and they do believe this, right? So if that's what the market is believing, because we have seen, look, this knee-jerk reaction out of the financial markets, quite often they will still believe exactly what Trump says. But I want to tell you, sometimes what Trump says isn't always true. Now, the flip side of that, if things get very bad, and we'll talk about this bad scenario soon, and if this is actually a level of deception, you could see another, unfortunately, horrific week on the stock market, the gold market, the silver market, because we have seen, unfortunately, this has been some of the worst sell-offs. And to be honest with you, though, this is having a real impact on the global economy. So this is not just like a tech stock sell-off and no one really cares. The impact is just tech valuations going down. This is actually impacting transport, right? So for example, you can see in Australia, over 100 gas stations across New South Wales now don't have any diesel, right? And this situation, the longer it goes on, the worse things are going to get, particularly for countries in Asia. We know China at the moment, it's well prepared. It's got its supplies ready. Other countries out there like Vietnam, Thailand, these might potentially run out of petrol and diesel and things like that. So this is going to have real world ramifications. In the background, amongst all this fog of war, there is also reports, you can see right here from CBS News, of Trump potentially having like a special operations mission as well to seize Iranian nuclear material. So is this going to be like a Netflix blockbuster? This has to be one of the most dangerous missions I would ever consider and ever heard of if they're going to do that. But that is just something to have on the radar according to CBS News. Now, having said that, in the background as well, there is also contradictory things coming out of the US. You're seeing all this tough talk on Iran, but at the same time, the US Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Asset Control has also issued waivers temporarily lifting nearly all sanctions imposed on tankers originating from or carrying oil from the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, this is another signal that the US is also losing its leverage and its negotiation power in this whole grand scheme of things because they're having to, waiver on their own sanctions that they've imposed. This is coming out of the Middle East now from Iran, but we've also seen they've had to waiver Russian sanctions. They had to waiver other sanctions on other countries out there because the situation is so bad. And again, if you wind back the clock, see where we are right now, this has been a huge, massive net loss for the US so far. Now, let's get into what actually is going on right now. So again, bring it back to this tweet. This is the last tweet, the last important tweet coming out of Trump. To my understanding, looking at that at face value, it does sound like Trump wants to wind things back. He's calling it a day. Is that truly what's going on? Now, let's listen into some of the evidence. Okay, so we'll play this clip and then we'll talk about more evidence so you are best informed about what's going to happen.
Take a look at the military movements that are occurring right now, and that is giving us the clearest signal yet that there is, in fact, some sort of ground troop deployment that is planned. Number one, we have 3 ships, an expeditionary unit of about 2,500 Marines headed to the region. That's in addition to 2,200 Marines that are on an amphibious assault ship also heading to the region. It's the USS Tripoli. Now, in addition to the USS Tripoli, we also know that there are A-10 Warthog jets as well as Apache attack helicopters also being deployed. What does this say in this entirety? Well, there's only one reason that those jets and those helicopters would be deployed, and that is to support ground troops in close air support. So the bottom line in all of this is that the U.S. president is being vague, but what we do know is that the goal is to secure the strait. That is what these Marines would likely be doing. But if boots on the ground are deployed, Adrian, this is a major shift in the war and signals a new phase, one that is likely to be very unpopular with the American public.
And that's 100% correct. So, guys, this is the critical point. We are actually seeing evidence of U.S. troops, more of them, going to the Middle East. So even though you are seeing tweets out of Trump about de-escalating the situation, calling it a day, having this disconnected version of victory, what you're actually seeing, you can see right here, the U.S. Army is preparing to deploy the 82nd Airborne Division into the Middle East region. There are already 8,000 Marines on their way. So is that potentially a photo of them? And then some people on here, a lot of analysis out there is saying this is not the same deal as going against Afghanistan. This is not the same deal as going against Iraq. And the reason is these Iranians are very smart. They have the highest number of nuclear PhDs in the world. They're experts at missile technology. So this is going to be almost like a very, very, it's not going to be a walk in the park. So even though those other conflicts in the past, they might have been easier, this is going to be arguably the toughest one. And you can see right here, this tweet out of Will, he's saying this is going to be a massacre in the making. All right. So could this potentially spiral into such a bad move where the US actually even gets defeated trying to secure the Strait of Hormuz? This is a real possibility. And this could mark the decline of US, supreme power after World War II if this happens. So if the US gets kicked out of the Middle East and all their Arab allies that they're supposed to be protecting fails to protect that, this could be the high water point of the US empire. And people I don't know if they're really understanding how big that ramification is. So ever since World War II, the US has just dominated the Middle East. It's dominated foreign policy. The beneficiaries of this geopolitically going to be, obviously Iran is going to be a big winner out of this. China will be a big winner. Russia will be a big winner. And then it's going to be more of a contested zone in the Middle East. Turkey's going to come out stronger of this. And so this is something to be aware of. If Trump actually does go all the way and he doesn't just call it a day, call it a loss and get out of the Middle East, it could be a violent fight, and there's a real chance of them losing that as well, the US losing that. So, and the other thing to understand, and this is the intel coming in from the Iranian side right now to give you that full context, so you can understand what they're also saying. They're actually saying right here, intelligence assessment, Trump is lying about not targeting Iran's energy facilities in the future, and his statements are intended as deception. He is reportedly seeking out to carry airstrikes against Karg Island and the Shahid Beheshti port in Chabahar. If such an action is taken, all oil production and export terminals in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other regional countries will be irreversibly destroyed. So this is what you have to understand. Look, if this escalates and Trump does go for this and the Iranians retaliate not only just against US troops but against all these gas facilities in the Middle East, this is the situation where unfortunately this becomes a nightmare scenario for the world. You actually will have like fuel shortages, diesel shortages. This could be a Mad Max scenario, unfortunately, coming to life. Now that is one thing to understand. And the other thing to understand as well is the foreign minister is not buying any of this. You can see right here, this is not just a random Twitter account. This is the actual foreign minister of Iran. He says right here, we are men and women of principles. Iranians do not sneak attack adversaries while engaged in dialogue. Only when attacked do we powerfully respond. We have intelligence on Israeli plans to strike infrastructure. Once again, zero restraint if our infrastructure is attacked. So again, they don't believe what Trump is saying. They don't trust what Trump is saying. And they're saying that on the historical context of, getting backstabbed twice before. Now, we also have another one right here. And they're saying here, an informed military source for Iran in Arabic, it is self-evident that any ground attack on Iranian territory constitutes one of our red lines. And just as we had a surprise in confronting every operation carried out by the enemy, it will be the same this time as well. The destruction of the Iranian islands will lead to the destruction of the coastal areas in the UAE and Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It may not just be within initial stages of this attack. So again, we have this potential for a very, very bad escalation in the Middle East. And again, this could get worse and worse and worse. And practically, what can you actually do about this? So obviously, we have, just a range of scenarios that could play out, right? Remember, the fog of war is still over the top of us. So I think, honestly, the best case scenario, this is what I would do if I was Trump. Again, this is coming more from like a nationalist perspective, a more logical and sensible. I would just be going through the diplomatic route right now. I would be trying to de-escalate this. I would be trying to, stimulate economic growth, not only in the US, but also in the Middle East. And I would be just trying to get away from the whole, violence and conflict thing. So you have to remember, there's a myth out there that, war creates economic growth. It's totally untrue. War fuels economic destruction. The only people who get rich off wars is if, of course, you own these companies that are involved in war. So the war industry, the military industry complex, they benefit off this, right? Because they're selling assets that get destroyed, consumables, they make more money, right? But if you're your average US person, you're just working a 9-to-5 job, you're paying taxes, you're going to be a huge loser out of this. And you already are a huge loser out of this, and it can potentially only get worse. So that's what I'd be doing. But if he does go all the way, this becomes an absolute, unfortunately, I don't want to say it, but like a disaster. And we see like one of the worst things ever happen in modern history. This is where, it does, the insurance pathway of being more and more self-sufficient from the matrix or the grid or whatever you want to call it might actually play a lot in your favor. So you're talking about your own independent energy supply, your own, independent food supply, or if you can't produce your own food, which is obviously hard if you don't have a farm, you have enough food to, weather a storm that becomes very bad. Because remember, this has a whole ramification of impacts. You're talking about, fuel not working, diesel, transport not working, groceries, fertilizer problems. The whole supply chain of like economic growth is getting cut off right here. So it does have the potential to escalate. You can see massive inflation. You can see shortage of goods. And so that, preparing for the worst scenario can also be good. We've also discussed on the channel in the comments, I saw comments just recently about solar power. So yeah, if you're in a country that has lots of sun, like Australia, if you have a solar panel, you have a good battery as well. So like a 50 kilowatt hour battery, that can also be good. We've seen a huge uptick in solar EV cars as well. But it's all dependent on how you can actually, generate electricity or power in your own area, if you can do that independently. And I'm also a fan of other sources of energy, nuclear energy, and there's other things I think are really good as well. So I'm open to a lot of ideas right here, but I think going down the pathway of independence. And the other thing you have to watch out for is, of course, look, if this becomes very bad, you could see a cataclysmic dump in the stock market. You could see a cataclysmic dump in the gold price and the silver price. And the reason, unfortunately, this is happening is because number one, you're going to have a real economic destruction. But number two, it's people are so scared, right? They're just going to go back to what they need, and what they need is food and energy, right? You need food and energy. It's like the most critical things in a modern economy, and especially food, right? Food, water, energy, that's it. So people will pivot to just essentials in a doomsday scenario, right? That becomes very important. And then, of course, like if you're in the US, Second Amendment, you got to be thinking about that as well. Can you defend your property? Unfortunately, there's some other countries out there very restrictive on Second Amendment, all that important stuff. That's what we need to prepare for. So that's the 48 hours. Again, we're going to see how this all plays out. Obviously, a huge video today. And we'll just see how it plays out. That's my take on the situation. Obviously, I don't want this to go bad. I don't really enjoy thinking that things are going to go bad. But I have to be honest with you on this channel. And I have to be honest with you about what I'm seeing. And, it just is what it is, right? So it is what it is. And this is the world we're in. And but I have to say, look, long term, sometimes you have to get through rough things before things eventually get better. And sometimes when, societies do go down and if bad things do happen, it gives you the opportunity to rebuild back stronger. So sometimes empires can get so bad and so corrupt that, you know, one of the best things that can happen is if they do collapse, and then people have that opportunity to say, look, that didn't work in the past, let's go again, and you can actually build a better society. So that's kind of the silver lining out of this whole thing. But again, just prepare, big 48 hours ahead. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good weekend.